What is the alternative to psychiatric diagnosis? Well, it's kind of simple. Listening to people's stories. Everybody comes into mental health services with a story, very often a very distressing and quite often very complicated story, quite often dating back many years. Diagnosis obscures people's stories. What we need to do is listen to people's stories. That'll give us all the information we need to help people find a way forward. So this is a quote from an excellent book which is on sale today, Searching for a Rose Garden. It's entirely written by service user survivors, so which makes it, unusual and particularly powerful, I would say. And this is what one of them said: until we're able to use our own words to tell our own stories, the context we find ourselves in this case the psychiatric system, says our stories for us and usually gets it wrong. In the context of the medical model, the story we learn to say is that we are ill. We begin to see ourselves as ill. We tell stories of illness, and the psychiatric system, and by extension society, accepts illness as the story of our distress. Being able to tell your own story, not the illness story, sets a new social context, one in which mad people are seen in a new light. In part, healing happens through the restoring of our lives. I don't know about you, but I find that a very powerful quote. Telling a different story, the narrative of medicine, which is often imposed on us, and which we very rarely have a choice about, as opposed to the opportunity to put together your own story, restore your own life. When he, a mental health professional, proclaimed, "You have a mental illness," I responded, "I thought I had stories to tell." I sometimes think this is a question we make too simple. The alternative to diagnosing people is to not diagnose them. And it's like those many, many tedious arguments I've had about ECT over many, many years. Well, what do we do instead of give people ECT? Well, don't give them ECT. It's kind of obvious because we already have alternatives. We have ordinary language descriptions. We talk about feeling miserable or desperate or suicidal or all over the place or confused or terrified. These, we've been fooled into thinking or believing that these are not accurate descriptions of the mental illnesses we may be suffering from, but actually these are just as accurate and valid. If we want to move beyond particular descriptions, like I hear voices, or I have, my moods are very all over the place, or I feel very anxious and scared, then what we need to find is various ways of telling our story.